Well, hello everyone, and welcome to our CAPE training program. My name is John Leatherman. I'm a professor in the Department of Agricultural Economics at Kansas State University and a cooperative extension outreach specialist for the past 30-odd years. With me on our CAPE training program and my partners, I'll identify and just go through this the first time just so that we have it on the record. But I'd like to also indicate that important contributors to our program include Mark Skidmore, the director of the North Central Regional Center for Rural Development, Rosa Solis McKelvey, Communication and Logistics Coordinator with the North Central Regional Center, Scott Loveridge, former director of the North Central Regional Center, Paula Miller, who is our CAPE postdoctoral fellow, as well as Courtney Cuthbertson, who is our former CAPE postdoctoral fellow. And I'd also like to acknowledge the contributions of Brandon Green from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, who was very instrumental in helping us to articulate our goals and objectives with our training program. First of all, let me just indicate what CAPE is. CAPE stands for Community Assessment and Education to Promote Behavioral Health Planning and Evaluation. The project sponsors for our program include the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, as well as the USDA Rural Regional Development Centers. Very broadly, the partnership is intended to identify and disseminate more effective response strategies to the challenges of mental illness and substance abuse within our communities. Our CAPE training objectives include enhancing behavioral health literacy and reducing stigma associated with mental health issues within our communities, and we do so utilizing a program called the Mental Health First Aid Program that I'll talk about in just a few moments. Our second objective is to create and sustain community coalitions to address behavioral health challenges within our communities. And we're doing so by way of offering a training series in community development practice, as well as discuss the notion of community action planning. Our CAPE training consists of 8 video lectures covering the planning of community scale initiative. Each of these are intended to be approximately 30 to 40 minutes in length and available for you to view at your convenience. We also have a live in-person training workshop, the Mental Health First Aid training, that you will be coming together with the other participants in this program to participate in, and I'll describe what that is like here in just a few moments. We'll have 4 webinars to discuss the materials that we're covering in the course of our program. And then finally, it all culminates in pulling it together in creation of a strategic community action plan that can help guide you in your future work in your home community. Right, this is how the CAPE training is organized. In this and in our companion video, we'll be providing an introduction and an overview of our CAPE training program. That will be followed by participation in the Mental Health First Aid workshop. And then we have a series of training programs dealing with various issues associated with community development, including community needs assessment, assessing community preparedness, engaging the community in building consensus, as well as community strategic action planning. Thereafter, we'll take a break of approximately 6 months, give you a chance to go back to your community, and then we'll meet again to discuss just exactly how you've been able to utilize the information and knowledge that you've gained in the training program. In our session today, what we'll be discussing is, first of all, this introduction, as we're doing right now. We'll talk a bit about why we are targeting county extension agents as our principal target audience for our training program. We'll talk about the expectations that we have of the program participants, and we'll talk about the mental health talk about mental health issues in the United States, as well as the Mental Health First Aid program. And then finally, we'll do a wrap-up and a look ahead at what you can anticipate next. Just to establish a baseline of vocabulary, what are we talking about when we're talking about behavioral health? Well, we're talking about sort of the confluence of 2 important health-related problems, those relating to mental illness, such as depression, schizophrenia, mental and physical abuse, eating disorders, self-harm behavior, and the like, as well as substance abuse. And that would include such things as illegal drug use, prescription drug abuse, alcohol and tobacco use, and the like. Why are we targeting cooperative extension county agents? Well, we believe that county extension is across all program areas, is an important entity within many of our communities and is integrated and perfectly positioned to organize efforts and initiatives on behalf of the broader community. But there are other stakeholders within the community who are extremely important in terms of potential partnerships, such as mental health professionals, the law enforcement system, local health care, local government, and others. But we believe that county extension agents are well positioned to work with and otherwise coordinate with these other entities to take on community scale initiative. Why extension? Well, behavioral health is a big problem in all of our communities. And indeed, we've probably seen it within our own families. We've seen it affect our communities, but most of us don't really recognize, understand, or feel comfortable in dealing with these issues of behavioral health or know what to do when we encounter them. Extension agents are integrated into the fabric of our community, interacting with individuals, groups, organizations to achieve broad community goals. We frequently refer to county extension agents as community change agents, and that's what we are hoping the role that you will be willing to take on in relation to behavioral health. We want to help make you feel more comfortable and conversant around issues of mental health and substance abuse, and perhaps you can help your community to effectively organize itself to respond to the challenges that exist within the community. What we are hoping to do on behalf of our participants, we hope that you will become more aware and literate about the behavioral health challenges that your community faces, that you'll be better prepared to recognize problems when you encounter them and know how to be helpful when you do. That you'll learn about local behavioral health services and programs within your community and your region, that you'll become more conversant about behavioral health challenges and feel more comfortable discussing them with the local health care professionals within your community, and that you will become ultimately a more effective extension agent across the breadth of your community-based programming activities. What we expect of you is that you will be a good faith participant throughout all of our training programs, that you will perform one community planning exercise, which functionally is nothing other than extension program planning, and that you'll try to do something to help improve the circumstance within the communities that you serve. What is not expected of you is you are not expected to become a mental health expert. You are not expected to diagnose the people with whom you encounter. You are not expected to make behavioral health a central focus of your community work or extension programming. You are not expected to solve community behavioral health problems or influence local mental health trends within your community. And please, we strongly encourage that you do not place yourself in any sort of a dangerous situation, feeling as though you have some special capacity to deal with such circumstances. You're not expected really to do anything other than be a good faith participant in the program and to try to help your community become a healthier place. Talking a bit about the behavioral health training component of our CAPE program. First of all, our first objective is really to try to enhance behavioral health literacy, and we do so through the Mental Health First Aid Training Program. The Mental Health First Aid Program is an international training program, and it builds on the idea of a first aid kit with application to mental health problems and challenges. It's a one-day, 8-hour in-person training program. It tends to be a fairly intensive day of training. There are various types of training programs. There's an adult-focused program, a youth-focused program, and other variations for certain special populations. Mental health first aid helps participants to recognize signs of behavioral health distress when they encounter them, to know what to do to be helpful in such instances, and to address broader behavioral health challenges by helping to reduce the stigma associated with mental health issues. Completion of the program provides certification of the participant such that you are identified as being a mental health first responder. Stepping back a bit and looking at mental health challenges in the United States, first of all, what are we talking about when we're talking about mental health? Mental health is a state of well-being wherein one has the ability to work productively, carry out daily activities, and engage in satisfying relationships. When we're talking about mental health problems, we recognize that mental health problems exist along a continuum of severity, but are generally not so severe as to justify diagnosis as a mental disorder. Mental disorders tend to be more rare and more serious, generally leading to some level of disability. How common are mental disorders? In any given year, about 18.5% of U.S. adults experience some type of mental disorder. That means functionally 1 in 5 people within our community may be suffering from some type of a mental health disorder in any given time. Generally speaking, mental disorders typically begin in adolescence and early adulthood, and they are often a lifelong disability. Frequently, they go unrecognized, and frequently they're misunderstood. The spectrum of intervention for mental health problems. First of all, we recognize once again there is a continuum that begins with being well, becoming unwell, and then ultimately being unwell, and then a process of recovery that extends thereafter. And at each step along the way, there are steps in responding to that circumstance. We would hope, first of all, to prevent any kind of a mental health problem, or perhaps intervene in that problem at an early stage and ultimately provide the treatment that is necessary to respond to that. As we consider mental health first aid, it is really very much in the early intervention component of that continuum, and what we would hope is that at that point we can introduce the individuals in need of such assistance to the professional help that they need. There are a variety of treatments and supports that are available from local physicians, mental health professionals, peers, family, and friends of the individual. Now, mental health first aid is built on the idea of offering first aid. Now, when we think about first aid, it is given to the injured before professional medical assistance can be provided. The aims of first aid are first and foremost to preserve life, to prevent further harm, to promote recovery, and provide comfort to the ill or injured individual. Mental health first aid applies that notion to mental health problems. Now, why should we need to have a first aid kit for mental health? Well, first of all, mental health problems are very, very common. Many people are not very well informed about mental health problems, and many with mental health problems do not seek help or delay seeking help. There's a stigma in and around mental health that oftentimes exists, and people may be reluctant to seek the kind of assistance or treatment that they need, or to admit to others that they are in need of help. People may not even know that they need help in certain instances, and professional help may not always be available when a person has the problem. And so we introduced the idea of the mental health first aid program. It offers a 5-step action plan that can be applied when encountering individuals with mental health challenges or issues. It proceeds from assessing the risk of potential suicide or harm to the individual, listening non-judgmentally to their thoughts and concerns, giving reassurance and information, as well as encourage appropriate professional help And finally, it encourages self-help and other support strategies that that the individual can engage in. In the mental health workshop, that first aid action plan will be applied to both developing problems, such as depression, anxiety, psychosis, substance abuse, or eating disorders, as well as crisis intervention that may be encountered when an individual may be suicidal, engaged in self-injury, experiencing panic, trauma, or psychoses, or other types of crises. So really, with that brief introduction, essentially we take a look ahead at what we'll cover in our second introductory video. That is where we will introduce our CAPE Community Action Planning strategy. Following that introduction, we have a webinar scheduled where we're going to meet together via internet technology to answer any questions that you may have and to discuss any greater detail, anything with regard to the training, and so you can make an informed decision as to whether or not to continue your participation. Finally, or after our webinar, we'll be meeting together in the Mental Health First Aid Training Program and having another webinar thereafter to debrief, discuss the training that we've gone through, as well as talk a bit about how we can apply the information and knowledge that we've gained in our personal lives as well as our work in our communities. Finally, I would just simply indicate these are the individuals who are principally available to answer any questions and to work with you. You can contact me, and you see my full contact information available there, as well as Mark Skidmore, who's project director for the overall program, and of course Rosa Solis McKelvey, who is our logistics coordinator and who engineers everything on our behalf. So with that, I'll close and visit with you again in our next video to continue our introduction and overview of the CAPE training program. Thank you very much.